Let's continue the conversation. Nippert Stadium, the best in the Big 12. Does any team have a chance to match Nippert Stadium's atmosphere once Oklahoma and Texas leave?
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, hello there. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. It's free and available wherever you listen to podcasts, including if you watch it on YouTube. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow us to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. Russ, our episode was so good last week that we are now up to 810 subscribers. 810. So we are getting up there, and it's great to see all of you who contribute every day, every week to the show. Today's episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by my favorite brand of clothing, and that, of course, is Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs clothing. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, and they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler. Excuse me, every order. That is Bird Dogs. Heltman, as promised, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated, joining me today. Russ, today is the official first day of summer, Wednesday, June 21st. 10 days from now, the Bearcats will be members of the Big 12. They're showing a game from 2004 on NFL Network because Joey Porter Jr. is taking over the network, so that's great. You get to see all the Joey Porter games, so I'm sure at the time of this recording. But anyway, Russ, boy, what a time to be a Cincinnati sports fan. Russ, at the time of this recording, the Cincinnati Reds are in first place in the National League Central.
That they are. Half game up on the Milwaukee Brewers. A couple streaks going on for FC Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Reds and the Bengals are 10-1 in their last 11 games. So,
well, this is true.
Good vibes all around for the city. And Bearcats picked up a couple of recruits. Unfortunately, lost Quay Birdsong last week, which was a massive hit
that
to
is a
the
massive
2024 recruiting class. And no longer have any 4-stars in the class, but they did add a couple 3-star commits. But man, you really want to start seeing a couple of those 4-stars start to flow in, especially when you think about the talent level you need to compete in the atmospheres we're about to talk about in the Big 12.
We are about to talk about a lot of great atmospheres, 2 of them that will be in the Big 12 this year. I will say this, and I was thinking about this earlier today, Russ, particularly with men's basketball. And I'll just briefly mention this. So we're seeing what the Reds are doing. We've seen what the Bengals have done the last 2 years. Bearcats football had those great 2 years from 20 and 21. Will Bearcats men's basketball get there? I mean, we're seeing like a lot of teams when COVID wiped out certain sports or shortened seasons. We're seeing some teams have those seasons that we expect them to have in 2020. Could Bearcats men's basketball be next in this city of Cincinnati?
Yeah, maybe, for sure. I don't know if it's going to be this year just because of the amount of talent that I think they still need to keep accumulating to be up there with the Kansases, the Texases, and all those teams at the top of the Big 12 on the hardwood. But they're heading in the right direction, that's for sure.
They are heading in the right direction. And in football, when you have an atmosphere like Nippert Stadium, you certainly are going to win a lot of games, at least at home. Russ, is Nippert Stadium the best atmosphere in the Big 12 right now?
No, it is not. I don't think. I mean, I don't know if I have much authority to speak on this because I haven't been to any of the stadiums in the Big 12. But I would say it would be pretty obtuse to claim the Nippert Stadium is the best atmosphere in a conference with the likes of T. Boone Pickens Stadium, with the likes of Millen Puskar Stadium, with the likes of Jones AT&T Stadium. When you think about just the fact that there's teams playing in AT&T Stadium in the Cowboys' home, you got looking at the West Virginia setup, 60,000 strong there. You got T. Boone Pickens Stadium, 60,000 strong there with a really crazy atmosphere, the way they can split up the colors there on game day. I think Nippert Stadium is going to fit right at home in terms of history, in terms of intensity that you need as a fan base in that stadium for these types of games in the Big 12. But I think it's a little premature, definitely, to say going into the Big 12, they are the best atmosphere in the Big 12. They got to win some home games in the Big 12 for me to put them on that level, a level that many prognosticators are saying they're going to lose as many home games this year as they have in the past 6 years in terms of looking at that 32-game win streak and the last time they really lost multiple games at home at all in the 2016 and 2017 seasons.
2017, they were 2-4 at home. In 2016, I believe their record was 3-5 at home. So were they? Yeah, they were 3-5 at. Were they? Yeah.
That'd be a lot of home games. Only 4 road games. That wouldn't make much sense.
True. Okay, you're right. I think maybe they were 3-3, and then they went whatever.
Regardless, it's only been one home loss since 2017, and that was the last time they rolled the balls out at home. And they probably will not. It would be an unmitigated disaster if they put back-to-back home losses on the board. When you think about going from Tulane to play Eastern Kentucky in your home opener this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot to prove for this team on the field, and I think for the rest of the Big 12 fan bases in terms of what Nippert Stadium is going to bring as one of the smallest capacity stadiums in the entire league, and one of the new coming stadiums at that. It's a great atmosphere, no doubt about it, but 40,000 strong are going to have to be super loud and super impactful for them to be able to compete, in my eyes, with the number one conference stadium after Texas and Oklahoma leave, which is Boone Pickens Stadium at Oklahoma State.
There's no question about that. Now, I think where we're getting here is, and maybe this is a given, maybe we're I don't know if we're assuming, but it's like we're talking about the Bearcats being able to win a lot of the games they're supposed to win this year, and that includes their home games. Are we like just saying that Eastern Kentucky, Miami, Iowa State, and Baylor and Kansas, that those are all wins, and maybe we're overlooking how hard it's going to be to win a Big 12 game regardless if it's at home or not?
Well, I wouldn't go and say that those are all going to be wins for sure at home. Like it's going to be tough to beat Baylor. It's going to be very difficult to beat Oklahoma at home. They're going to come into that game, I would imagine, no matter what happens over the first 3 weeks of the season, unless they blow out Pitt somehow and just start looking like a juggernaut in that non-conference slate. They're going to be touchdown home underdogs, in my opinion, to the Oklahoma Sooners. And when you look at that matchup right now on ESPN's matchup predictor, Oklahoma a 75.5% favorite to win that game. I don't think any road opponent has been over a 75% favorite to beat the Bearcats at home in a long time. Since the beginning of the Luke Fickell era. So you look at that road trip, the toughest road trip they're going to have this season, in my eyes, is to the incumbent leading atmosphere in the Big 12, which is October 28th at Oklahoma State. Going to be a very difficult game to win, and a very, I think, good encapsulation of what the peak type of Big 12 atmosphere could look like.
As far as the newcomers in the Big 12, do you think Nippert Stadium is the best atmosphere amongst UCF, Houston, BYU, and the Bearcats?
Oh man, it's a tough toss up between BYU and UC. Those are two really, I would say, passionate fan bases. BYU, obviously a smaller town, Provo. There's nothing else really going on besides BYU football. You have that amazing mountain backdrop in the background. It's tough. Those two are neck and neck, but they blow UCF and Houston out of the water, in my opinion.
Interesting. So you're not even saying that UCF is going to rival Nippert Stadium, because I've watched UCF games over the years, and when UCF is good or when it's a big game, the bounce house is a very, very tough place to play.
Yeah, but the thing for me is it comes with those caveats. When UCF is good and when there's a big game. The bounce house is not consistently, to me, a strike fear into the lesser opponents type of arena. It's not a place where, like BYU, they could be up and down, and they're going to still pack that place and be able to bring a tight atmosphere. And over the past few years, obviously last year, it was a down year technically for the Bearcats as part of the AAC, but they were still packing Nippert Stadium every single week. I think they sold out every home game last year. It was at least 5 out of the 6. So you have to be able to bring that intensity to me every single week and have that kind of Nebraska type of feel where even when Nebraska is down, they've been down for 2 decades, they still end up selling out every single game.
Yeah. And I think there is a disadvantage because you're going to be one of the smaller stadiums in college football in the Power Five, only 40,000 seats. I mean, you look at Oklahoma; they have a large stadium. Same with Texas, over 100,000. And then, as you mentioned, Russ, you've got Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, and uh, Texas Tech, and then eventually West Virginia, Iowa State. So it is going to be a very interesting adjustment as far as atmospheres in the Big 12. But I don't know if you had a chance to read Barry Trammell's column in the Oklahoman last week, who's going to be on the show tomorrow. But he's really, really sold on Nippert Stadium's urban atmosphere. He called it the Wrigley Field of college football in terms of the architecture, in terms of its nostalgia, in terms of its location. It was really fascinating to read him do justice to Nippert Stadium, UC, and the city of Cincinnati, and they're going to bring an urban feel to the Big 12, where right now, and yes, Houston's the fourth largest city in the country, but then you think about Austin, Texas, well, they're going to be gone, and then who else are you going to have? Oklahoma stays in Stillwater. That's not metropolitan. I mean, what's your next metropolitan area besides Houston and Cincinnati? So it was
Texas
really interesting.
Tech, really? That's about it. TCU, Tech, Fort Worth is kind of metropolitan.
I guess you can go there. But it was just really fascinating to read that.
But yeah, I mean, actually, never mind. Lubbock is not metropolitan, so I don't know why I said that.
That's over towards New Mexico.
Yeah. Baylor a little bit, but Waco's still kind of off the beaten path. Yeah, I mean, it's really going to be the only kind of them and UCF to a certain extent is metropolitan, but not as in the heart of right outside, in the heart of campus, in the heart of downtown Cincinnati, in the heart of the city, so to speak.
It's that close to downtown. All right, so Russ, we got some Big 12 rankings I want to ask you about, including the Bearcats being ranked 11th in a category that I don't think they should be ranked remotely that low. We'll get into that after I explain to you how this episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by Bird Dogs. So, Bird Dogs makes you look good. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed that issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Right now, go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. I cannot stress that enough because I will wear Bird Dogs even when I'm running. That's how comfortable they are. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All right, thank you again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. Don't miss Locked On NBA Draft live on Thursday night. Pick-by-pick analysis from our stable of local NBA hosts, national reaction from our NBA Big Board hosts, and live check-ins from inside the NBA Draft. Locked On NBA Draft live starts 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time Thursday on the Locked On NBA YouTube page. Russ, I know you're a big NBA fan. Are you looking forward to Thursday night in the NBA Draft?
Oh, yeah. My Hornets just sold, got rid of the worst ownership in professional sports that is not also a bad human being attached to it. My favorite team finally has hope. We're going to have actual money coming in, Alex. Not going to have the cheapest owner in the sport running things. And Michael Jordan, an absolute ball and chain on my basketball fandom life. And they got the number 2 pick to go with it as well. So I am very much looking forward to Thursday and the rest of my Hornets tenure without Michael Jordan pulling the strings and controlling the pocketbook.
All right, fair enough. So recently, the college hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network did a survey, and we ranked certain categories in each conference, Power 5. And the Big 12, we have the top 5 fan bases. Now, Russ, I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen that you'll see, I'll see, and if you're watching at home, you'll see as well. If you're listening wherever you listen to podcasts, I'll be sure to run through the list. So, Russ, here's a look at the top 5 fan bases in college football, or I'm sorry, in the Big 12, according to our hosts. BYU, Oklahoma, Texas, Iowa State, and Kansas State. First off, do you agree with that top 5?
Well, it kind of plays into my BYU argument for why they might have a little bit of a leg up on the Bearcats in terms of incoming atmospheres and the passion of their fan base right there. And could you pull up the top 5 once again?
All right, so I'll pull it up again. You got BYU at number 1, Oklahoma 2, Texas 3. Those 2 are leaving. Iowa State, and then Kansas State.
That's tough. I think Oklahoma State would have a case in there. Baylor would have a case in there. West Virginia would have a case in there. And that kind of is the thing, Alex. There's, I think, a few different fan bases that would take umbrage with that. And that just goes to show how much passion is in this conference. How much passion Bearcats fans, when they make road trips over the next 15, 20, 25 years in terms of basketball or football, how much kind of fan interaction and great kind of banter they're going to be able to have with everybody going to these games. And I think there's a few cases you can make to be in that top 5, but as you mentioned, there can only be 5.
Well, I think another thing that's going to be interesting to see is when the Bearcats host games. When you host BYU or you host a Central Florida or you host another team with a big fan base like a Texas Tech or this year in Oklahoma, how many visiting fans will be in Nippert Stadium? We're used to seeing this at Paycor Stadium with the Bengals, where you'll have a lot of fans from the visiting team. It used to be that way over the years at least. But at Nippert Stadium, it never has been that way. So you could now have a scenario where you have 10,000 Oklahoma fans in Nippert Stadium, or you have 10,000 fans from another fan base. I mean, have we thought about that?
I haven't really looked into or thought about that. It's a good point for sure. And it's a point Bearcats fans are going to be kind of at the mercy of their own decision making to control, because we obviously know season tickets are, I think there's a waiting list now. It's very difficult to get season tickets for Bearcats games as it is. Student tickets, obviously hot commodities, and the size of the stadium should make it easier for Bearcats fans to keep those large swaths of opposing fan bases out. But that resale market exists, and sometimes people just can't really make it to games, and that's just kind of not even their fault. They got stuff going on. So it'll be very interesting. There will be a lot more fervor and a lot more fervent pursuit of those away tickets, definitely in the Big 12, than there has been in the AAC. Although the Big 12, Alex, kind of becoming a coast-to-coast conference. We probably will be getting some more realignment news in the next 2 to 3 weeks in terms of the Pac-12's media deal coming down, and whether or not Colorado, Arizona come over from the Pac-12, UConn also sniffing around the Big 12, Gonzaga basketball-wise sniffing around the Big 12. So it could soon become a coast-to-coast conference and a more nationwide conference similar to the geography of the AAC.
Very similar. It's going to be interesting to see if you get a school like a Colorado that gets the Denver market in the Big 12, because right now the Big 12, their biggest market is Houston, which is great. But outside of that, in Cincinnati, I mean, you could say Orlando. I guess, BYU is near Salt Lake City, but at the same time, and this is true in all of college football, your best teams are in small college towns. It's not in New York City or LA or Chicago or, what I'm saying is, not to make Cincinnati so unique, but if you can get a market like Denver that's going to open your options, it's going to, now Dallas still plays a factor in this because that's where the Big 12 championship is. Kansas City's where the basketball tournament is. Now, let's get to, I want to show you who we selected. Now, the Bearcats, by the way, on fan bases, Russ, were 11th on that in those rankings, which I vehemently disagree with that.
I guess they're just saying you got to prove it. You got to prove that.
And that,
I think there's some reticence for the rest of the Big 12 thinking, all right, we're the big brother. They're coming onto the big brothers arena. They're coming onto the big brothers playing field, and they're about to experience what many people believe 70 to 75% as many losses this year as they've had in the past 3 years, as they've had in the past 4 years. And maybe they're thinking, how passionate and how stick with it will this fan base be when they've not only transferred to a new conference and aren't having success, but have been plucked away from their head coach in the same instance, in the same timeline, and ultimately left with a guy that I think Scott Satterfield is set up for success. I think he's done a decent job so far, but there are a ton of people that do not believe in Scott Satterfield throughout the Bearcats fan base, and it's kind of justifiable. He went 500 over a 4 or 5 year stretch at Louisville in a Power 5 scenario, in a league that's a little bit easier football-wise than the Big 12. So it could be a wait till you see it, you got to prove it type of thing there with the 11th overall rating.
But why do you think people don't think Scott Satterfield's going to do well? Is it because of him, or do they not know all that went on in the Louisville athletic department?
I think it's just a combination of it all. And it's a what is your record? You are as good as your record in the sport. That's the bottom line. But Scott Satterfield, great guy. Love interviewing him. Seems like a great family man. Everybody loves working with him. I haven't heard really any like supremely bad stories about contacts or relationships or anything like that. But he's a 500 coach at the Power 5 level. And he just got a promotion after being a Power 5 coach in terms of assets, resources, location, conference, all across the board. It's an upgrade from the Louisville situation he was just at. Can he capitalize on that, or can he not capitalize on it? There's not a lot of evidence historically saying that he will come in and keep the 53-11, whatever the record is over the past 5-6 years status going, especially when you think about the talent jump going into the Big 12. I'm not saying that necessarily, and I'm willing to give him some time. Say if there is a 4-8 season coming up or a 5-7 season coming up, that seems like it's hitting the roadblocks time and time again. But we know how fans work, short for fanatics, and we know how impatient things can be, especially in the sport of college football.
53 wins over the past 5 years. So
pretty good. It's pretty
good.
It's hard. It's a high bar to live up to. High bar to live up to, especially when people are predicting 4-8, and that's 8 of the 11 losses you had in the past 5 years. A couple of those coming against Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, like major Power 5, top of the tier
Ohio
level
State
teams in terms of talent. Ohio State, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so I've got another question for you coming up about John Cunningham after his latest hire for the Cincinnati Bearcats. We do that next here on Locked On Bearcats. Russ, the Bearcats have a new baseball head coach, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Jordan Bischel from Central Michigan. Have you?
I don't cover baseball, so I don't know anything about Jordan Bischel.
Okay,
Enlighten me.
So Bischel spent 5 seasons at Central Michigan, and in his first season, he took the Chippewas to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 24 years. They won their first tournament game since 1988, and in 22, they went back to the NCAA tournament. They beat Miami, Florida. They beat Miami, Florida in one of the tournaments, and then they lost to the 13th ranked Gators in another tournament. So he had a lot of success with 4 championships, 2 in the regular season, 2 in the conference tournament in Central Michigan. How much does college baseball success mean to a university, especially when they're transitioning to a Power 5 level?
It's a good question. I think it's going to play a little bit of a role in terms of the overall financial health of the school. Obviously, the more success you have, the more eyeballs you're going to get. The College World Series going on right now. Bearcats fans, I'm sure, would love, especially Bearcats Cincinnati Reds fans crossovers, Bearcat Cleveland Guardian fans crossover. If you're up north and a Bearcats fan, they would love to see their team on the ESPN airwaves fighting in those best of 3 series night in and night out. I'd have to dive into the numbers. I don't know what the financial logistics look like. If you win the College World Series, for example, if you're Wake Forest and take home that crown to the AAC, I'm sure it's in the millions of dollars, but it's not obviously going to be as much money as what you'd receive from an NCAA tournament championship, what you'd receive from a college football playoff championship, obviously. But it can't hurt. It cannot hurt. And you're already investing pretty good amount of money, and I believe a new field turf going in Cincinnati. And the fact that you're bringing in a new coach, you're investing resources there that you'd love to see bring fruits out of in terms of postseason success. That brings even more money to the athletic department to be able to distribute throughout and keep it as healthy as possible.
Now, this move really says to me a lot about John Cunningham, Russ, because this is now the fourth head coach he's hired. And you're seeing that baseball's starting anew. So what does this say about John Cunningham as far as what he's trying to bring to this athletic department and a fresh start in 4 major sports?
Well, let's see. Katrina Merriweather, the latest hire as well, a couple months ago. She comes over from Memphis, I believe, and was she was an UC alum, I'm pretty sure.
She is a UC alum, yes.
Yeah. So an interesting hire there, and another one of those kind of up-and-coming hires, Alex, where you go from a little bit of a lesser conference, a group of 5 conference in the AAC, obviously, jumping up with the Bearcats in her move to the Bearcats into the Big 12, and then same kind of thing. The MAC, I think the MAC's actually a pretty decent baseball conference from what I gathered, and at least it was when I went to OU and covered the baseball team a little bit there. So I see it as him making 3 hires here, Alex, in Wes Miller, Katrina Merriweather, and Jordan Bischel that are upward trajectory hires, trying to catch these kind of streaking comets flying higher and higher into the sky, versus Scott Satterfield, who's been literally level 500 over the past 3 or 4 years in his tenure at Louisville, but a guy with a proven track record of taking a program from a major step down into a step up. When you think about Appalachian State going from the FCS to the FBS. So I think it's a interesting fact that he went with 3 kind of lesser proven talents at the major level to a guy who has experience, doesn't necessarily knock it out of the park at a Power 5 level, but has that kind of saving grace, that kind of deep breath. You can think and look around and think you're safe and think that he has an idea of what he's doing, taking a major program to a major step up. And it is a little intriguing to me that 3 of the hires have fit this kind of mold, and then Scott Satterfield has kind of broken it a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. And looking forward to seeing how that plays out, of course, in baseball and obviously football and then men's basketball. Russ, as always, it's great to have you on, and I'm sure you're looking forward to the NBA draft tomorrow night. And obviously, what are we? So we're 10 days away from being members of the Big 12, 73 from the first football game of the season. That's just over 10 weeks until football season. And then we are 94 from the Bearcats' first Big 12 game. Is it 94? Yes. 94 days away from the Bearcats' first Big 12 game against Oklahoma.
It's crazy. Can't wait. I got my summer vacation coming up. So next week, probably the last time we'll chat if I'm popping on the show next week.
Where's the destination?
Off to Europe. We're going across the seas, little Mediterranean cruise, 2 weeks off. Been saving this PTO for over half a year. I cannot wait to kick back, recharge the batteries. And then when I get back, we'll only be about 6 weeks from kickoff at Nippert Stadium.
Mediterranean cruise. I can only imagine the food you will be having.
Oh, yeah. It should be a lot of fun. You ever been out of the States, Alex?
I have. Yes, I have been out of the States. I have been to the Caribbean.
Nice.
I have been to, Costa Maya, Cozumel.
I've been to Cozumel too. That's fun.
The Bahamas. I have been to Honduras.
Yep.
They ate some good chicken when I was there.
There you go. Hey, we got some travel synchronicity right here. Been to a couple of the same places.
And this is a cruise I was on.
Yeah, I did a cruise too in the Caribbean.
And that's actually, it ties back into when this podcast started, Russ, in December of 21, 2 weeks before the playoff game. I was recording episodes from the balcony of our cruise ship.
There you go. There you go. It's like me when I tried to do that episode in Florida last year, but I'm sure you had better connection. Then again, you probably didn't have to deal with connection issues because you could just solo do the show out there.
I actually, and that was when I was only doing audio because I had just started.
Right.
But I couldn't upload them, so I had to send them to my boss to upload the episodes. But it was weird because I couldn't be on Wi-Fi on my phone and computer at the same time. So I had to turn off Wi-Fi on my phone to be able to turn Wi-Fi on my computer, and then do it all over again.
Gotta love modern technology for sure.
Modern technology is a great thing. It's a great thing. Russ is on Twitter at RussHeltman11. I'm on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's and an ATI. Instagram, AlexFrank9_, and then email alex3frank@gmail.com. And thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman will join me tomorrow to discuss all the features he wrote on the University of Cincinnati. Until then, thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. For Russ Heltman, I'm Alex Frank. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Locked On Bearcats. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.